I always thought the worst kind of betrayal came from a lover. But I was wrong. There's something far more soul-crushing than a partner's infidelity, being betrayed by your own child. It started with a phone call I wasn't meant to hear. Was in the hallway, my footsteps soft on the carpet, carrying a tray of my homemade tea. My joints were aching that day. Age has a funny way of creeping up when you least expect it. But nothing could have prepared me for what I heard through my son's slightly ajar bedroom door. "Yeah," he said quietly, a little too quickly. "She's 68. Health's been going downhill for a while. The payout is massive. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. She thinks I'm just helping with her bills. Trust me, it'll be smooth." I froze. That voice, it was my son, David, my only child. The boy I had raised single-handedly after his father died in a car crash when he was 12. The same boy I had fed, clothed, sheltered. The boy I had sacrificed so much for. Missed vacations, skipped promotions, endured loneliness. So he could have everything I couldn't. I didn't move, barely breathed, my hands trembling so much I almost dropped the tray. The teacup rattled softly against the porcelain saucer, but David was too engrossed in his call to notice. "She'll never know what hit her," he laughed. "I've already taken the policy out. I'm the sole beneficiary. All I need now is patience." My knees buckled. I pressed myself against the wall, the breath knocked out of me. The words replayed in my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. An insurance policy. My death. His payout. He was waiting for me to die. It didn't make sense. David had always been kind, or so I thought. He visited every weekend, offered to handle my medications, even offered to take over my bank accounts so I wouldn't be stressed. I thought it was love. I thought he cared. But that call ripped the blindfold from my eyes. It wasn't love. It was calculation. Cold. Strategic. Deadly. I backed away quietly, not daring to make a sound. I went straight to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, hands still shaking, tea still untouched. My mouth was dry, my heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Every memory, every tender moment we'd shared suddenly felt fake. A performance, a script he'd perfected to gain my trust. He wasn't just waiting for me to die. He was planning for it. I wanted to confront him, to storm into that room and scream. But something inside me stopped. Maybe it was the years of motherly instinct, or maybe it was something more primal. Survival. Because suddenly I understood. If I said the wrong thing, if I exposed that I knew, I might not have as much time left as I thought. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, my mind racing with questions. Why would he do this? Was he in debt? Was he that desperate? Or had he always been this way, and I'd just never seen it? I felt the grief begin to bubble inside me. Not grief for my death, but grief for the son I thought I had. The love I thought we shared. It had all been a lie. But as I lay there in the darkness, something else stirred beneath the grief. Anger. Cold, calculated, righteous anger. He thought I was old, weak, that I wouldn't suspect a thing. But he underestimated me. If David wanted to play a dangerous game, then fine. He was about to find out what happened when the prey turns the trap on the hunter. I wasn't going to die quietly, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. The next morning, I played the part. I smiled at David when he came into the kitchen, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. I asked about his work, laughed at his jokes, even let him refill my pill organizer like he usually did. Every word that came out of his mouth was like acid, but I swallowed it. Because I needed time, I needed clarity, I needed proof. But inside, I was breaking. This wasn't just about some cold, distant son who saw his aging mother as a burden. This was something far darker. David had taken a life insurance policy out on me, without my knowledge. That wasn't just morally twisted, it was dangerous. And he wasn't acting alone. That phone call wasn't to a friend. It was to someone in on it. Someone who had coached him. There was a level of coordination to it that chilled me to the bone. Over the next few days, I began watching closely. What I saw made my blood run cold. He had started controlling more, and more of my life under the pretense of helping. He insisted on handling my prescriptions, started asking about how I was feeling, too often. Offered to make me tea and meals regularly, which he never used to do. And every time I took a bite or a sip, I'd catch him watching me, not with concern, but with calculation. I started pretending to eat, pretending to sleep, pretending to be weaker than I really was. I had to know just how far he was willing to go. That same week, I made an appointment with my doctor, but I didn't tell David. I took a cab, paid in cash, and asked for a full blood panel. When the results came back, I sat across from my doctor as he frowned at the numbers. "There's a low level of sedatives in your system," he said. "Nothing dangerous on its own, but it's not something we've prescribed. Have you taken anything unusual?" My hands clenched in my lap. No, I hadn't. But someone had given me something unusual, likely in my tea or food. My own son had begun dosing me, probably to make my death seem natural. Quiet. Untraceable. That was the moment I stopped thinking of him as my son. He was something else now. A threat. A con man. A predator in familiar skin. The emotional blow was enormous. For days I wandered around the house like a ghost. This was the boy I used to read bedtime stories to, the one who used to clutch my hand during thunderstorms. I remembered every scraped knee, every birthday cake I stayed up all night baking, and now he was plotting my slow disappearance, all for a payout. $500,000. That's how much the policy was worth. I found the documents one night, hidden in a folder on his laptop. He hadn't even tried to encrypt it, so confident I was, too old and tech illiterate to ever snoop. My name was there, clear as day. The policy had been taken out 6 months ago. He'd listed himself as the sole beneficiary, and in the health declaration, he'd exaggerated my condition, listed fabricated heart palpitations, memory lapses, and fake prior strokes. It all made sense now. The hovering, the fake concern, the unnecessary medications. He wasn't taking care of me. He was prepping me. And what's worse, if I had died, no one would have questioned a thing. Everyone thought David was the perfect son, always helping, always present. The charming caregiver of a slowly fading old woman. I realized then how easy it would be for him to get away with it. No suspicion, no justice. Just a clean death certificate and a fat check. But not if I had anything to say about it. I was done being scared. I wasn't just going to save myself. I was going to make sure he paid. This wasn't just about my life anymore. This was about something deeper, something far more corrosive than one act of betrayal. This was about trust, about love, about the very foundation of what it means to be a parent. When David was born, I made a promise. I told myself that no matter what, I'd protect him. I'd give him the life he deserved, one full of love, stability, and safety. I worked 2 jobs. I skipped meals to feed him. I wore the same shoes for 5 years, so he could have new ones every school year. I went to every parent-teacher meeting, every doctor's appointment, every scraped knee emergency. I was there. And somewhere along the line, he learned to use that devotion. He didn't just betray me. He weaponized my love against me. And that cut deeper than any knife ever could. For a while, I thought about going to the police right away. But then, I remembered how this world works. A mother accusing her son of attempted murder with no hard proof, no bruises, no physical assault, no gun to my head, just some sedatives and a hunch. They'd smile politely, take notes, and do nothing. Worse, if he caught wind of what I was doing, he'd speed things up. So I waited. I started writing everything. Down. Every conversation, every strange interaction, every meal he prepared. I took photos of the pill bottles, of the tea he made when I wasn't looking. I saved the blood work results. I began keeping a hidden camera in my bedroom, disguised as an air freshener. Within a week, I had footage of him going through my drawers, checking my medications, even looking through my phone. I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting for the truth. Because what if I wasn't the first person he tried this on? What if he'd done this to someone else, or planned to do it again? What if, after me, he moved on to someone else's parent, someone else's grandmother? He was so calm, so methodical. It was like he'd rehearsed it. I thought back to a conversation we'd had years ago when he was just out of college. He had complained about how money was too slow, how he didn't want to wait 40 years to be rich. I thought it was just youthful impatience. Now I realized it was a glimpse into the mind of someone who saw shortcuts instead of work, manipulation instead of care. He was a predator in disguise. But this wasn't just a crime of money. It was a moral cancer. It made me question everything. How many elderly parents had been written off as senile or unstable when they tried to speak out? How many quiet deaths were never questioned because the perpetrator wore a smile and brought flowers? This mattered because I mattered. Because people like me, older, slower, vulnerable, are so easily overlooked. We're written off as burdens, as liabilities, and monsters like David know how to exploit that. But I wasn't going to let him. I may have been older, but I wasn't done. I still had fire in me. I still had fight. And above all, I had clarity. For the first time in months, I saw him for what he truly was. And I saw what I needed to do. Because justice doesn't always come with flashing lights and sirens. Sometimes it comes with silence, with a steady hand, with a single call that changes everything. I started planning, meticulously, quietly, like a mother cleaning up a mess. Only, this time, the mess was my son. And I was going to make sure everyone saw him for who he really was. I didn't need revenge for the sake of revenge. I needed justice, but not just for me, for every person who'd ever been discarded, dismissed, or manipulated by someone they loved. David had made a deadly assumption, that I was old, tired, and oblivious, that I'd go quietly, like an unattended candle burning out. He was wrong, and I was going to show him just how wrong he was. But I couldn't act on emotion. I needed precision, facts, evidence that couldn't be dismissed. So I reached out to the one person I hadn't spoken to in years, Evelyn. Evelyn and I had been close once. We worked together back when I managed the HR department at a local insurance agency. After I retired and she transferred to the fraud division, we lost touch. But now I needed her expertise. I invited her over under the guise of a casual catch-up. When she arrived, I locked the doors and pulled out the folder I'd been building for weeks. Photos, screenshots, copies of the insurance policy, medical records, and notes I had taken daily. She flipped through it slowly, her brows furrowing, deeper with every page. "This is serious," she said finally. "This policy alone is suspicious. But the pattern, your symptoms, the control he's exerting over your life, this is more than just elder abuse. This could be attempted insurance fraud, maybe even attempted murder." I nodded, my throat dry. I wasn't crazy. I knew it. Evelyn agreed to help, discreetly. The first step was confirming the legitimacy of the policy. She pulled some strings and found out that David had lied on nearly every portion of the application. My health status, the nature of our relationship, even forged a letter from a doctor claiming I was terminal. That was our golden ticket. A falsified insurance document was a felony in itself. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to catch him. So I staged my vulnerability. I let David believe I was getting worse, slurring my speech sometimes, fumbling my pills in front of him, letting out the occasional staged cough or dizzy spell. The more fragile I appeared, the more confident he became, and the more careless. He started leaving things out. Emails open on his laptop, voice messages from his shady advisor, even printed notes on when he thought my health would naturally decline. It was grotesque, like watching someone plan a funeral for a body still breathing. I documented everything. Meanwhile, Evelyn put me in touch with a private investigator she trusted. retired law enforcement, meticulous as hell. He installed tiny cameras in my kitchen and bedroom. He helped me create a backup of David's files without him knowing. And he advised me on one crucial thing. Don't confront him until you have everything. You want him to walk into the trap, not run from it. So I played along. I thanked him for the soup. I smiled as he offered to organize my prescriptions. I pretended to nap as he snooped through my nightstand drawers. Every moment was painful, soul-crushing, but I held steady, because the end was coming. I could feel it. The final piece of the puzzle came when I accidentally left one of my journals out on the kitchen table. It was bait, a decoy. I had written a fake entry about considering changing my will. That same night, I saw David typing a frantic email on his phone, an urgent message to the insurance rep, asking how fast the policy could be accelerated in the case of a rapid decline. He was getting impatient, and that meant it was time. I scheduled a meeting with Evelyn, the investigator, and a quiet third party, an old contact from Adult Protective Services. Together, we would prepare the confrontation and the legal steps that followed. I wouldn't just expose David. I'd dismantle the illusion he'd built, brick by brick. He had played his part in the drama so well, but the final act, that belonged to me. The trap was set. Now, all I had to do was watch him walk into it. Step by step, I started tightening the net around David, slowly, methodically, like he had done to me. Only this time the prey wasn't an old woman. It was a man who thought he was untouchable. The first move was backing up everything. With the help of the investigator, I uploaded every video file, document, and audio recording onto multiple encrypted drives. One I kept hidden in my room, one I mailed to Evelyn, and one I left with the investigator. That way, even if something happened to me, the truth would still get out. That thought alone gave me power. I wasn't powerless anymore. Next, I started building a paper trail, a very visible one. I scheduled another doctor's visit, and, this time, I told the physician everything. I explained the sedatives, the forged documents, even my suspicions of foul play. He was hesitant at first, but once he saw the test results and the medication discrepancies, he offered to write a formal statement. That document, signed and notarized, would go directly to Adult Protective Services, and if necessary, the police. Then came the bank records. I reviewed my finances and saw just how much control David had tried to exert. He had convinced me, months ago, to grant him limited power of attorney in case of emergencies. I revoked it immediately. Evelyn's lawyer friend helped me draft the paperwork and ensure it was legally binding. I also changed the passwords to all my accounts and added dual authentication on everything. And just for good measure, I switched out all the medication in the organizer. If he tried to drug me again, I'd know it. The most chilling part? He did. 2 nights later, I found residue of a crushed pill in the bottom of my tea mug, a different kind from my prescription. I saved the cup, labeled it, and had it tested. More proof. Then came the final straw. I recorded him on a hidden mic, speaking to someone on the phone in the living room, pacing like a man on the edge. He didn't know I had planted a second listening device under the couch. I sat in my room and listened as he said the words that sealed his fate. She's slipping faster than I thought. I think it'll be done by the end of the month. Yeah, we'll finally be free of her. Free of me, like I was a burden, a business transaction waiting to be closed. That recording was sent to everyone: the investigator, Evelyn, the lawyer, and the APS caseworker. With all the pieces in place, we organized the confrontation. It was a Friday afternoon. Evelyn and the investigator came over, but not as themselves. They posed as representatives from the insurance company, asking to meet with David about policy irregularities. He was smug, overly confident, until the questions started getting specific. Then we brought out the paperwork, the faked health records, the sedative test results, the audio file. His face went pale. "You recorded me?" he asked, shaking. "Yes," I said, stepping into the room. And so did the hidden cameras. He looked like a boy again, scared, trapped, cornered. But I felt nothing. No motherly instinct, no sympathy, just quiet satisfaction. Adult Protective Services was called in that night. The police followed, shortly after, escorting him out of the house for questioning. Fraud charges, attempted elder abuse. The investigation was ongoing, but they had enough to hold him. And just like that, the curtain began to close. The house felt quiet that evening. Not empty, free. I sat by the window, sipping tea I made myself. No sedatives, no poison, just peace. And for the first time in a long time, I felt safe in my own home. The day of the formal hearing arrived with the weight of years pressing on my shoulders, but I stood tall. Dressed in a navy blazer and slacks, I looked every bit the woman David never expected me to become. Strong, clear-eyed, and utterly in control. He was escorted into the room in handcuffs. Gone was the polished smile, the charm, the performance. His eyes darted around nervously, searching for an escape that wasn't there. He looked at me, his mother, and for a moment, I wondered if he expected me to cry, to plead, to forgive. But there was nothing left to give him. The courtroom was quiet as the evidence was presented, clip by clip, document by document. I watched him squirm as the audio played, his own voice echoing through the room. We'll finally be free of her. Those words hung in the air like a storm cloud. The judge leaned forward. The prosecutor didn't have to say much. The case spoke for itself. Attempted insurance fraud, elder abuse, forgery. And though the charges were still pending full trial, David was denied bail. The judge labeled him a potential threat to the victim and stated there was a clear pattern of manipulation and premeditated harm. That moment, watching him being led away, wasn't triumphant. It was necessary. It wasn't about watching him suffer. It was about ensuring he couldn't do it again, to me or to anyone else. And it was about reclaiming something he tried to strip from me, my agency. In the days that followed, I received calls from APS, from advocacy groups, even from my old community center. People wanted to hear my story. They wanted to believe women like me, parents like me, survivors. So I told it. I spoke to a local support group for elderly individuals experiencing financial and emotional abuse. I started volunteering at a center for caregivers and their families, and I worked with Evelyn and her department to develop a presentation on spotting early warning signs of elder exploitation. Because silence is what predators like David count on, and I refused to be silent ever again. People asked me if I missed him, if there was any part of me that still loved him. And the truth? I loved who I thought he was. The sweet boy who used to fall asleep in my lap. The teenager who stayed, up late helping me paint the kitchen. The man who once told me he wanted to make me proud. But that boy was gone, replaced by a man who saw me as a number on a check. So no, I don't miss him. I miss what I believed we had. And that's grief I'll carry, quietly. But it won't consume me. I've rebuilt my home, room by room, taking back the spaces he tried to control. I've filled my days with purpose, gardening, reading, reconnecting with old friends. I've even started writing again, something I hadn't done since before David moved in, because I'm still here. I'm still standing. He thought I was disposable. But I reminded him, and the world, that women like me don't go down without a fight. I made one phone call, and it changed everything. It started with a whisper, "Help me," and ended with a reckoning. And now, I hope my story reaches someone who needs it, someone who feels trapped, dismissed, unheard, because I was there. But I found my voice, and when I used it, Karma listened.